enjoy the show, play on Walljangers.
Welcome to the Tales of the Hunted podcast. I briefly got a chance to go on to globalcomics.com to check out Tales of the Nihilism. And I got to tell you, man, I was reading the Ballad of Philip Kirshner 1, and that's in here. And then it went on to 2, and I went right on to 2 because it gives me a feel of like The Boys, how it starts off with Huey, and it's all these superheroes. They're affecting his travel, and it's not a good day for Phil because his boss does not want excuses. I don't care. Yeah, guess what? We don't take that bridge. After the second issue, I'm like, dude, avoid that bridge. Like, is there another one? Like, you gotta think outside the box here, Phil.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You hit it right there. That's the premise. Imagine your entire world and just how much it would suck if superheroes and supervillains existed. You think it's bad if you got in a wreck and then you've got to pay your insurance premium and now you got to, go through all this kind of crap. Can I deal with this? What if that happened on a weekly basis? Because, the Hulk is rampaging through downtown or something. And then, if you've ever been in a natural disaster and they cut off your utilities and then all of a sudden you get one of those nice estimated bills where it's like $900 for your electric. You're like, I've never paid $900 in my life.
Yeah.
And now imagine that happening every week because Superman threw somebody through, the downtown area.
All because you chose to move to a big city. Like, that's your fault. Right. I mean, I'm in Delco, so I'm in the suburbs. So it's not like in this superhero world, I'd be like any less affected. Like the Blue Route would still be fucked up because, Batman blew up part of the left lane and you're like, what the hell, Batman? There's that kind of premise you instantly love because I think a couple of shows have tried to have this premise and it hasn't really worked out because of, this, that, or the third. But it still has always been a really good premise, like almost like an insurance adjuster in this kind of way. Like, oof, Superman, huh? Oh, man, I love him. I'm so sorry for your loss. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Here's your check.
What's funny enough, you bring up Batman because that was the brainchild for this. Is I was playing the Batman Arkham Asylum video game, and one of the deals like completely took me out of the whole world because I was like crawling down in through the sewers, and then you've got to like enter some area through the police station, and their server room is in the bottom there. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. You can't have a server room here. It's got to be dry and cold and, like, what the hell's going on here? And then you just see, like, guards, like, sitting around not doing anything. And then, so it pulled me out. And then I started wandering around the game. And then I just started, like, pointing out, like, OSHA violations and health code. Like, I'm like, oh, well, no wonder Gotham, like, there's all these problems. Like, they don't have a city infrastructure. Nothing works.
They're all being bribed. Look the other way. The Joker has a wire in here that's monitoring all the security systems, and we don't touch that. Do you love your family? Okay, you don't touch that wire.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of premise there.
Absolutely. And I figured I would just take those kind of things and take them to the most absurd, place I could get with it and really get meticulous and really get down in there and be like, this is what it's going to be like. So all these like fantasy ideas that we've built up with all this world building, just kind of like knock a hole in it and say, no, we're not giving it any quarter here.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting process because you're taking, fleshing out this idea of superheroes, which is very prevalent in this world right now. And, going off of this, is this something that you are particularly interested in just this person's perspective going off? Because I've only checked out like maybe the first 2 of this. Is it just his view of this world? Because he gets kind of, a little bit murdery there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Phil, this is kind of where the what you're talking about, the boys and the Watchmen, those kind of like deals where they're talking about the other side of heroism and hero worship and those cultural ideas. The other side is I'm putting in like a falling down type scenario. If you've seen that movie with Michael Douglas, because
Yeah.
that kind of like seems to be the only place you could go if you lived in a world that insane. Eventually you would just have to like let it consume you and take you to the bottom of it, and just where it's like, where do you go after that?
Right.
After you lose your job, you lose your girlfriend, you lose all this stuff, and you're just like, okay, where's it going to go from here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's an interesting premise, because it reminds me a little bit of like the Killing Joke, where you get a little bit of Joker's backstory and
Yeah.
how Batman, you're one bad day away from being me. The
Yeah.
similarities of those two, and really how you see this man. I instantly thought, like, this guy could instantly become a Joker and
Yeah.
have that super sane kind of realism as to, like, do you not see what I'm doing?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also try to balance it as well and say, like, on the flip side, this person can also instantly become a hero. And right now we have 8 issues slated for Phil's story, and he's our main series line that we're running right now. And it's things like, he'll go to a homeless encampment and all these homeless people are sitting there and their lives have been destroyed by superheroes and supervillains. And they're kind of arguing with him and saying, well, hey, we're only like able to be like this because of superheroes, and they're barely like keeping us, in this area. And then he's like, no, their whole world has like ruined your world. That's why you are, how you are right here. And so it's like this back and forth between he becomes a hero figure and then jumping into a villain and then, moving back and forth.
It's interesting. It gives the character some room to grow.
Yeah.
Ultimately, because you're not just stricken to, well, he's Captain America. Well, this is your bad guy. It's allowing a more natural, almost life story to happen. So you're getting almost that slice of life in a fictional world, which is, the whole goal of the premise, but it's being done very nicely. And
Thank you.
story-wise, I've really instantly got into this as I'm reading it. I'm like, oh, okay. And the story was the first thing that I really latched onto. And some of the artwork, how it's a lot more play with, it's all black and white, but the play with black and white is, it's got its own flair to it, which gives you your own style.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always been traditionally, a penciler and inker, in my doodles and all that kind of stuff. So I went that route, and digital stuff is new to me. It was a long curve that I had to jump onto. It took me about a year and a half to even like, start nailing it down.
This guy next to me, Frank, he knows that.
Yeah.
He knows that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that,
Drop ink all over my floor. I don't give a shit. I'll just stick to that, man.
yeah. There's just so many nuances that you can do with a pencil and pen. And then when you're in a computer, you're like, now I've got to like game and think how I'm going to make this thing that I want to happen here.
Lack of choices make easier choices than multiple choices that are at your fingertip. I mean, it's almost unlimited.
It's a program.
And
you get the program, you do the tutorial, and you get that pen with the stylus, and anybody can, with an iPad and the right program, can now become an artist with enough practice. And that's that kind of digital age we're getting into. And I think, just like you guys are saying, I think that there is something lost to that with the pencil and ink, because I said it many times on this podcast. We were at, Frank and I were at Blue Hen Comic-Con, and this one inker came up, and he and Frank, they went on for like, it seemed like hours. It was probably like 20 minutes on different styles and how the inking is different. And I kind of like glazed over, and I just started people watching and nodding. It's like,
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
I was really into it in the beginning. I wanted to learn. It's like,
It was,
what do you?
it was a very high cliff to push him over, and think, fly little bird, It's just
Yeah.
it was new. It was new to him. And I think it was Mark McKenna. We went into Talk and
That's when I keyed in. I was like, hey, what are you guys talking about here? I feel like I should be taking notes.
Yeah.
I should be taking notes right now.
And I'm a lefty, so I'm pretty sure from like the age of like 5 to 18, my left hand was nothing but like covered in lead and ink. It's just
yeah.
I know. You know what? Because my dad's a lefty, and I remember he would have the smudges. On his hands, because we would go out and we would just go to there's this this diner out in Delaware County. It's called Woji's, and instead of regular tablecloths, they would have paper and give your kids crayons. And my dad would sit there and he'd be drawing a machine from work, and he'd tear off the little piece of paper, pop it in his pocket. I gotta take this one.
Yeah.
I was around that kind of a creative person where hang on a second.
Oh, that's amazing.
Draw this out real quick, And then on the side times he would spend drawing Darth Vader.
Oh heck yeah.
There you go.
There you go. There was that kind of level of exposure to art to where you see somebody in that kind of, hang on a second, I gotta do this. How many moments, but did you connect to the muse in that level with this idea more? I mean, it's kind of because you're making a superhero world your own. I feel like it's very much like trying to find the in-between world and really thread the needle there with that idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely tongue-in-cheek, and there's some metaphors in here and all that kind of stuff. But I really do want to make this more story driven, and that the art drives the story, And I work with a good writer, Joseph Miles Pittman, and I come up with the concepts and basically where we're going to go, where I want these issues to start and finish. And then he just gets in there and refines it, pulls the script out, and, really hones it in. And I'm like, holy crap, yeah, this is exactly the way I had it in my head. You're pulling it out and putting it right here. And thanks to that, I'm able to take these images and some stuff, work with him and say, hey, we don't need to write this down. We can show this happening. And this would be a great scene to show, rather than have it, all the exposition and stuff like that. But it's a good relationship, and I think we've gotten a good balance with this. And we both know where it's heading, and it's all right, we're bringing it in.
Yeah, I mean, definitely having a partner that you can be on the same frequency with this project is a good way to keep the idea grounded and make sure that the original core concept still keeps going on. Because there's a thing that we've all seen with Marvel and DC back in the day, just kind of I don't know, how about this? Manga is doing that now because those manga artists are being worked probably just as hard as Frank was back in the day, probably worse. But, there's something with artists to where you can get that fatigue, especially with having to constantly move. I don't know how our last guest, Carissa Grant, Frank, what was she like? I wrote issue 40. We're releasing 9.
Oh, she had her books planned out to issue 40, and I go, wow. I mean, I'm looking at 6.
She has her covers for the next 2 years.
40. Now, if you send one out once a month, which is relatively, what it should be, how that's going to take 4 years nonstop, because there's very little pause in between. Okay, it went to the printer. You just cracked open another pad of paper to start another book.
Yeah.
And I
called her the Girl Scout of comics, man. And holy crap, is she prepared? because she also was planning like miniseries off of that to explain stuff that she left in there. Like, wow, man.
And then she's got a really big team because if she's doing it all herself, I go, she needs like 3 or 4 people. Otherwise, you know, she ain't going nowhere. She's going to be chained to the house. I mean, that's it. You know, there's nothing. Forget her.
Hey, some people like that, man. That's hey.
Some people do, but you know, it will burn you out. Let me try. It will burn you out. I mean, sat there 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna 1 more hour. You know, it's like, what am I doing? You know, and scratch. You know, on an ink pen. That's man.
Yeah,
that is the sound that you want to hear. That will drive you nuts.
Yeah, I already juggle this between a day job, and I'm like, that's already enough for me right there.
Yeah.
But it's more important to me, you know, what the story is going to say and how it's going to be presented. You know, instead of trying to just slam through and make something out just to have something, or you know, come up with a wild tale just to have it. You know that. I really sat down and thought about this, and I've been through a lot, and I wanted those kind of like experiences to come out. I wanted this to be as relatable to the normal person as possible, because we've all been there. We've all like had a job that sucked, and you had to go every day, and it's grueling, or you know, you get laid off. A lot of people experience that for the first time with COVID. You know, people going through all of these things, and it's just like, you know, when then you're like looking at comic books and you're like, okay, yeah, I mean, there's some dark ones out there. You definitely have Frank Miller, you know, your Alan Moores and stuff like that. But it still kind of gives credence to those worlds, and it still kind of like has some sort of, you know, constitution behind it. And I just wanted to take that away and then like put something out there for normal people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, talk about normal, because looking a little bit into you, because I always try to do that into my guest. You are a veteran, and you mentioned that to me. I was looking into you. Here we go. Okay, just make sure. But I've been having some like issues with my sound sometimes. So Tales of Nihilism, you served.
Yes, sir. I did 10 years in the Army as a infantry paratrooper, man.
Wow, thank you for your service. That's
absolutely
awesome.
Especially a paratrooper. My grandfather was in the Army back in World War II, and they offered him more money to be a paratrooper. He said, "Good, good, no thanks." They did have white parachutes back then, so it was kind of like really obvious. Like,
hey, man, they're still iffy today too. they tell you when you go to airborne school, they're like, this is not the best made parachute. This is the best made parachute that will get you to the ground as quick as possible.
General issue. Just good enough to get the job done.
This is a parachute for the money we want to spend on it. It was like, good Lord, for them to get you down
fast. They tell you everything in the Army.
The government.
Fast. I mean, I can.
Have you not met our government? Look, this is what we're gonna give you that will get the job done. It's not the best to get the job done. It will get the job done.
Yeah.
We got UFOs to make in the background, people. We're saving money.
Yeah.
Well,
heck yeah.
Service, because that's like paratrooper. Wow, that's awesome.
It's impressive, dude. It's really impressive, and you know, it's something that, especially back when you served, a lot of people. It was very heavily pushed out in the media. It was very heavily pushed everywhere because it was important for America to be there and to serve, and for, you know, to have those people out there to make people like myself able to just sit here and make funny little podcasts. It's impressive to have people put their life on the line for America and stuff like that. And you mentioned that there's a veterans con that you're going to be into, which I haven't heard of, which is a great idea.
Yeah. So basically, last year we kind of, me and my writer, solidified to do this, you know, put some more skin in the game. And so we went to our first comic convention called Plastic City Comic-Con, and that was near Boston. And it's like curated for independent artists. They try to keep all the bigger people out, the merchandisers and all that stuff. So it gives the artist, full advantage.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's very nice. Yeah.
And that's when we're starting to look at all the pains of this stuff, and it's like, all right, we're gonna get 25 copies of this first issue. How are we gonna fund this? How are we gonna get out there? How are we gonna do all that? And I just went with the old school model of like, hey man, comics used to have all these ads in them. There was the ad of the guy running up and he's getting the sand kicked in his face, and it's like, hey, you want to buy the pills? You'll be the Macho Man now.
Oh, way back in the day, you had the fucking Marlboro Man in there, and Camel, and all those cigarette companies, man. Right, the comics.
Spalding Sports Company.
Yeah,
with,
absolutely.
Jack Davis artwork, which I thought was just like, oh my god, it wasn't even part of the comic book. It was just Jack Davis,
Yeah, yeah. And so we reached out and we got 2 ad guys to put ads in there, and that funded the publication and allowed us to go out to the convention. We sold out on the issues that we had, and we were just like, okay, hey, this is pretty good. And and then after that, with my veteran contacts, I had a sponsor reach out to me, and he was like, this is really good. I like your work, and I want to sponsor you to go to a convention. Okay, well, let's look around. And then, I didn't even know about it either. Start looking around. Oh, there's specifically a veteran Comic-Con for veteran artists out in California. It's like, all right, man, that's the one we're going to.
Wow. Nice. That's awesome. Really,
yeah.
So he's sponsoring you to go out to that con.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. That is so cool.
That is very nice.
Heck yeah.
And you have an awesome premise for the comic, because it's not always just like like cookie cutter, like clean cut and perspective wise. There's like, you can tell like there's a bit more going on there in the art style when you're looking through the comics. It's the touch you get from the indie market that you're allowed to go outside those lines and those borders of what is always seen in comics. So it stands out because it's not like the normal thing you'd see. But if you look into it, there's reasons for these lines and why they are the way they are.
Exactly. I do want that feeling of kind of like, this is a manic story. So you'll have parts of it that just go through and you feel like you're just like circling the drain and going down there and kind of losing yourself. And then all of a sudden snaps back to reality. And then now we're taking it from, a kind of more outside perspective. What's going on? We'll have periods where we're in Phil's head and he's just like locked into that inner monologue and can't let go of where he's at. And then bam, something happens. This guy's snapping back to reality. And I wanted the artwork to kind of like reflect that as well. So it gets in that point where, I'll get real harsh on the lines. I'll get real quick with it all. And it just seems kind of like, chaotic. And then all of a sudden the wing shows up. Now it's back to trying to look like, haha, hey, how's it going, citizen? And
oh, that's the thing I wanted to mention. It was the ambergris ads and the crows.
Mm-hmm.
I love the crows. I love those corny little jokes. And I love ambergris because it everybody knows what that is. If you watch Futurama, like it's just the funny ad and then the funny little cheesy. It kind of reminds me of like manga and how they always have like those little it's really fun.
I was taking my inspiration from like RoboCop. Okay. So you're what was it?
I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah, or Starship Troopers, where you just have the weird ads that come in, and it kind of like puts in that little bit of capitalism in there too, and just kind of like what? Because you really, if you keep following the ads are always something in the market that the product is actually really disgusting, but we've kind of like sexualized it and put like the models on there and all that kind of stuff, but the ads aren't going to do that. Yeah,
it's a really nice touch.
That's an interesting thing to add.
Because just
I'm sorry. Tell me what artist or writers has inspired you to start to write. What penciler, inker, or storyteller got you to do sequences? I mean, your book.
Yeah. So as far as like books, I was always a classics reader. I all the Jules Verne's, all the H.G. Wells, your Rudyard Kipling, all of those kind of stuff. But as I got older, I started to get into more of some like existentialism and stuff like that. And I was I'm a huge Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fan.
Nice.
Douglas Adams and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you will then appreciate the definition of Perjangers. My partner made the name Perjangers because it was nothing. It was no word. So perfect name for a company. And then through podcasting, we defined it: a person or group who love or infatuated with nerd and geek culture. And the beauty about being a nerd or a geek is that you could be a nerd or a geek about anything. So the answer is 42.
Exactly.
I always like to bring that up. Especially you mentioned Hitchhiker's Guide. Yeah. I'm like, guess what, gang? I'm going to mention it again. Okay, for all you watching at home, he mentioned it. I can't help myself. So
Absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely. I mean, I was just blown away by the whole series. I think it was the first book series where I just like went out, bought the whole thing, read it, start to finish, and just couldn't stop. Every waking minute, I was back into it, and
it's probably one of the first ones that I went back and I re-listened to because I like Audible. I re-listened to that one. I re-listened to Game of Thrones. Like, Hitchhiker's Guide was so good.
Yeah, I mean, it was really ahead of his time, and he's got that mentality of he did all the like walking across Europe and just living in hostels and all that, and so a lot of that comes out in his writing, and so that kind of like chaos and minutia about it, I was blown away. And so with writing, that's kind of like my inspiration area of what I consider like the top. But with comic books, as like a kid, I picked up one of those like How to Draw Marvel Comics by Stan Lee, and I just followed that book over and over until I could draw every picture in that book, until I could do all the little details and everything. And on the side, I was like, practicing on my own, creating comics, and I'm like, I'm gonna make my own superhero, and do all this other stuff. And it was, just following down there. But I would have to say, style-wise, I think the Frank Miller style, that's my favorite. When you look into like Sin City and things like that, and it's really that idea of like when your art, supplements the story and just the two get married together, that's when it's always my favorite.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
I'm looking at the panel of right after he just beat the fuck out of that guy with the iron pan. Goes back to his apartment covered in blood, and he just sits there. He's smoking a cigarette, and he leans back, and he just enjoys a moment. And then the next panel of it's all black, and he has the white face. You still see the black of the blood on his shirt. It's it's an impressive 2 panels because it's him just justifying what he just did.
Yeah.
Like, this is a bad person. Like, almost like he's Tom Hardy in Venom. That's my shopkeeper. Yeah. I just saved her. Like, the Wing wouldn't do that. Yeah. Look what I did. He's not coming back on the street. He's dead.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, a lot of that can draw from, my time in Iraq and things like that, where you just go through pure chaos like that. And then now, you go back and regular world, all right, everything goes back to the way it's supposed to be. And you're just like, okay, how do I come down from what I just went through to this?
Yeah. Wow.
Just the pure adrenaline of your every day-to-day moment over there, and then having to come back, I think, was one of the things in that post-war that a lot of people really started to focus on is, like PTSD and a lot of different mental disorders and issues that come out of being in those stressful wartime situations. Hopefully, a lot more veterans we'll go out and, hopefully we can get psilocybin studies out there and to help with the PTSD, because it's like hitting a mental reset button.
Oh, yeah.
It's something that I feel can help a lot of veterans out there. And, I wanted to get your take on this.
Well, anytime I do get asked the question, the big focus that I always try to push that people seem to be the most unaware of is that most jobs in the military, regardless of branch, you cannot walk off of that job, walk into a civilian job that does the exact same thing and do that job at the same pay level and same experience level. It doesn't exist. I mean, even me, there's things like they tell you all the time, oh, you're infantry, that doesn't cross over into the civilian world. What are you going to do as an infantryman? Well, you could be an armed security guard, right? That's kind of, that's similar roles and things like that. But no, you can't do that. It costs money to get certified to carry a weapon. It costs, training time to go do all that kind of stuff. You have to have and I think it's like a good year and a half of, work that you have to put in.
Wow.
So you can't just walk out of the military and be like, I'm going to be an armed guard.
Medical, that kind of military training, you still have to go through that much?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
And if anyone can take a gun 1, 2, 3 in the dark, blindfolded, it's you, and you've actually used it. You've actually practiced using it, and you've actually had to actually use it. So, what's left? What do they want? Outside of that, they're just testing you, see how well you can write.
Yeah.
What's left? Literally, okay.
Yeah, I think it was 2017 when they finally decided that they should give military truck drivers an actual CDL for their training, right. And so you have all these guys that get out.
That's so ridiculous. That's so fucking ridiculous. You're driving military fucking trucks.
Yeah,
this is armor plated. This is so much different than your Sunoco truck driving down the street or your Walmart Amazon delivery.
Yes.
Exactly,
and
you're not going to CDL.
Most of them barely run at that. So it's like you're already a miracle worker by getting it to drive. But yeah, it's insane. And so without that cushion, and you get out and you think, oh, I could just fall back and do the same thing that I did in the military, and then you find out, no, you can't do that. Okay, well, where are you going to go now? Because most people sign a 4-year contract, right? And you go in, do your 4 years. Technically, the military owns you for 8. They can call you back within those 8 years. But you do that time, you're behind your entire peer group. They went off to college. They've been doing internships. They've been getting, experience and networking and all these kind of things. You get out. What do you have? You can't fall back on the job you did in the military because you don't have the right certifications. Maybe, you have a family too. It gets rough. And I see how people can spiral down.
Well, when I went to tech school, I met a lot of people who were veterans from the military. And some of them were even mechanics in the military. And they told me how I was so glad I didn't do that. Because guess what? Those mechanics and tow drivers, they're the ones going to get the car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Guess who's waiting?
Oh,
the person who blew it the fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah.
No thanks. Yeah. Woo. Once again, dodged a bullet or a bomb blast there.
You too.
IED, Ooh. So there's that kind of realism. But then, these guys were going to get their degree. You were working on diesel trucks and Jeeps, and Hummers, but now you have to ace these classes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay.
I've seen the medics in the Army. They're out there doing intubation and field surgery and all this crazy stuff. And at the end of the day, they only have an EMT basic certification. They get out, and if they haven't been able to go to paramedic school while they were in and plus up, nah, man, you're just an EMT basic. The only thing you can give people is ibuprofen and oxygen. You're like,
damn,
really?
Wow.
Yeah.
The inequality there, because you're getting real life experience, and it doesn't equate out to even college credits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could have a kid who didn't go military and just interned and got college credits, and he's even more further ahead.
Yeah.
For less.
Yeah. And then,
everything.
You go even further, I got out as an NCO, non-commissioned officer sergeant, and it was like, you go through, you have to do these leadership courses that it's the same stuff they're doing in business school. I go through, I get 6 Sigma, green belt certified, all this kind of stuff for the military. Well, when you get out, they're like, oh yeah, that doesn't count for the civilian world. You're not really 6 Sigma lean management certified. You're like, what? They had the course. It was word for word the same thing that you tell me right here. It's.
Can I show you my notebook?
Yeah.
I took notes.
Yeah.
No notebooks, huh? Okay.
Yeah. And so with that kind of hurdle, it's easy to see how people, can really like just lose themselves. I did the same when I first got out. I was 23 years old, not a care in the world. I was like, I'll just go to college. I'll use my GI Bill. But I bounced around from job to job, and I was just kind of like trying to figure things out. And like I said, there's that moment where you're like, fine, I'll just go be a security guard. And then you walk up there and they're like, nope, you can be a minimum wage unarmed guy. That's all you qualify for. And you're just like, all right.
Back to square one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's easy to see how somebody can slip off of that.
Exactly.
And I've seen a lot of, veterans come out and go to the automotive industry and lead very successful careers. But, there's a lot of other ones I've seen that dropped out. They didn't follow it through. It's given me a little bit of perspective here as to how, that kind of happens in that mindset, because there were a lot of veterans that were not okay.
Yeah.
I felt for them, and, there was nothing out there to really help them.
Yeah. Definitely that's the extra layer of it too, is you're going from that culture, that society, and those kind of things. And if you have any sort of like mental health issues, and on top of like, what we normally have to deal with, yeah, it's just too much. It's too much pressure for anybody to handle,
Well, especially when you looked at the conflict that it was of Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't World War II, where I have my uniform, you got yours. Anybody could literally blow you up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, woman, or child, anxiety. They could walk up to you with a big ass smile on the face, and then there goes your best friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to get all dark on the podcast, but I feel like this perspective of a veteran's life coming out, and now you're turning it on its end with your comic. Yes, it's the Tales of Nihilism, which at the title you feel like, Jesus, nihilism? But then when I got into it, I'm like, let the nihilism times roll, bud. Let's go. It's being able to overcome a massive hurdle and be able to, I imagine that telling this story is almost therapeutic. You're taking your life experiences and the chaos that you went through of 10 years of paratrooping, which I can tell you, you're the only one in this box that understands that. And then being able to turn it into a beautiful comic of creative expression, and not only tell an interesting story, but also be able to look at it and take something back that can help the reader's life. And there's that kind of inspiration in the words of the story as well, which is on top of the artistic expression and the amazing story, there's also something to take away from it. And on Walljangers, I love onion layers. And this is like an ultimate onion layer for an intro to anybody in the indie market.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, answer me this. What in your experience that you put into your book that you used as close as it was, and what did you take and distorted in a story?
There's definitely a familiarity, with the violence and things like that. So I definitely have that that ability to maneuver in there and pull out that kind of like psychology of where somebody's at and how you're going to, justify yourself in that way, of your life. Probably, I guess the area where it would be like I had to do more imaginative and try to figure those kind of areas out are more of the like interpersonal type relationships. I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I make this relationship type conversational and appear more natural and things like that. Getting into those kind of deals. If it's more into the philosophical and that kind of vein, that's more my wheelhouse. Now when we're getting into the sociability, it's kind of like, okay, I gotta like overthink this and then try to imagine this.
There you go. Well, that's interesting.
So it's interesting with the story that I got to see so far. I want to know, is there any kind of a different style of story that you have in the works that you want to put out? Is there do you want to do like a horror story? Do you want to do maybe an animated series? Is there a different way that you want to branch out from this storyline that you're doing now?
What we do is to kind of stay fresh on it. We also do short stories, and those short stories can be anything. We're like, okay, we're just going to come up, like we just released the Girl and the Cat story, and it's a girl who's in a wheelchair, and she has a broken leg, and there's a tiger who escaped the zoo, and it's trying to infiltrate the house, and just stuff like that. I did one where it was a caveman, and it's just like he's walking around trying to survive and moving around, and he's getting chased down by a wild animal, and stuff like that. So we have those that we use to flesh out, and we're like, we'll go in there, and the art is different, the stories are different. Most of them are one shots, and they don't have anything to do with the main series. But we did do a one is called Steel Stalwart with the and that ties in with the main series, and that was based off the premise of what if Superman was being hunted by the CIA. They're tracking him down, and they're trying to kill him, but not because they think he's Superman. It's because he's a really good reporter, and he keeps like releasing government secrets and documents and stuff like that. Because I don't think like anybody really focuses too much on Clark Kent.
The Clark Kent who did WikiLeaks.
Exactly.
They're hunting the Edward Snowden Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. I like that. Yeah.
Nobody knows he's super. Nobody knows he's Superman. He's just God, this guy is really good at his job. We got to take him down.
Yeah. And then they don't understand why they can't kill him.
Larry, you said the bullets were worked. They were 50 cal. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, that was the opening scene. We've got all the assassins. They're like doing their radio checks and like, red team leader coming in and all that. And then they see him trying to get away. They're like, the Mark's getting away. And then they jump out and they try to shoot. And he just super speeds away and they end up shooting each other. And it's like, what's going on?
I love that. What happened? I don't know. They're all dead.
Yeah.
Okay. Didn't work out.
Yeah.
Nope.
But I'm glad we have that space because we can just go into it and we're like, hey, let's take a break for a month. Let's do a completely different story. We'll refresh our brains and then we'll come back and we'll look and we'll make sure that everything we have in this main issue is going the way we want to. And maybe we fleshed out some other ideas and we're like, all right, let's pull this in.
Well, it also gives you the idea for fans to let you know, like, hey, I want more of this.
Yeah.
And then you get, well, here we go. Here's another one of these tales. I mean, it's it's an interesting way of doing it because you have your main story, and then hey, let's just keep something else fresh in the hopper.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, if I like to have a what if question, so if you had the choice, they're both knocking down your door. You can do Thunderbolts, or you can do Suicide Squad. Which are you going after?
I think I'm doing Suicide Squad. I'm definitely doing them. because DC always has the ability to go like darker and more kind of like extreme with their characters, but also you get the fun of basically getting to pull in um, kind of like those Greek mythology tropes and stuff. Marvel's really good about, all of our characters are very representational. They can mean anything. They can represent anything. We can change it at a whim. X-Men, all of it, it's just kind of like real malleable.
Mm-hmm.
But with DC, like Superman represents something. I have been in the most remote regions on Earth, and kids recognize the Superman symbol.
Yeah.
Like that's how prolific. Like you're like, there's not a TV in sight, but these kids recognize Superman.
Right.
And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I can play with that, because if you have those kind of tropes to build, you can also tear them down. And if you're using a Suicide Squad deal, that's perfect.
I like it. I mean, overall, I think, just like you're saying, that you get more of that grittiness from DC. I mean, overall, Marvel with the Thunderbolts, it's. I feel like it's a stretch for them right now, cinematically. But DC with James Gunn, I think that Suicide Squad was literally like a resume, like a job application. Like, hey,
he understood the assignment.
This is how you can save this. By the way, like if you want to save this thing, that's how you do it.
Yeah, you look at the two Superman that came out, the Henry Cavill one, and then the one before that, and it flopped because it wasn't Superman. I like Henry Cavill. He was good in The Witcher, and really and truly, he didn't do too bad of a job as Superman. The problem was the writing and the direction. You're like, this just isn't Superman. Superman does not represent these things, and the character is just, I can't get behind it. And the one before that with the other guy, he had the full Christopher Reeves look, but he was a deadbeat dad. And you're like, you can't make Superman a deadbeat dad. Like, that's just...
They really did do that. Yeah, he was a deadbeat dad. And hey, Johnny, I'm your dad. I know you lifted the piano, but
yeah,
that movie did really fall flat.
Yeah.
Because that was supposed to be a continuation off the Christopher Reeves, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, no.
But that guy did do justice as Kingdom Come Superman in the Arrowverse, Crisis on Infinite Earths. He did kind of, he got a little bit back there,
Yeah.
And then Tom Welling's Superman coming back as a Superman that gave away his powers. He's just a farmer. Just cutting wood. Like, all right, guys, have fun in the multiverse. Like, there was a lot of really fun stuff, but I feel that DC Marvel's got to really stay on their shit, because the Marvels is coming out in 2 days on Disney Plus, and they're really betting on Deadpool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta get your take on Deadpool, because I loved the two Ryan Reynolds movies, but that wasn't my Deadpool.
Yeah, the movies were hilarious, but like you said, they were Ryan Reynolds. That's it's not Deadpool. It is Ryan Reynolds, and you're missing a lot of the nuances from the comics in there, and there's some throwbacks. There's some little Easter eggs and stuff like that, but I think maybe his ego pulls out a little bit too much in him. And you're just like, this is a Ryan Reynolds movie starring Deadpool.
Yeah, you get that feeling. I mean, because it's all the music that Ryan Reynolds is into. It's all this stuff. Like, I mean, I get that there were drastic similarities to the character Wade Wilson to Ryan Reynolds, but Deadpool was literally just a copy off of Deathstroke.
Yeah.
He evolved into this fourth wall breaking character that everybody loved. But even still, if I was going to point to a Deadpool, like as we said in previous podcasts, it would be that Deadpool video game.
Yeah.
That was the closest. With all the voices in his head and the goofiness and all the weapons and zaniness, like, that was my Deadpool. Give me that. If Ryan can do that, then I'll be sold on Deadpool 3. But I'm still betting on James Gunn to be able to give me a true representation of the characters that I know from DC. Because that was the problem with their cinematic universe, was that their animated universe was hey, these are the characters. This is the storyline. Here's your movie.
Yeah. Well, I think you have both studios, Marvel, Disney, and then DC, looking at each other and then trying to copy their homework instead of like staying in their own lane. Because it's like you have DC, like you have your map, you have these characters. Superman is in the Americana in history, since the freaking 30s, like Action Comics and all that kind of stuff. Everybody is so recognizable on these tropes. Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman. Every time they come out with a new Batman movie, and we gotta watch, Martha Wayne and them die every single time. You're like, I don't need to know Batman's background.
Yeah,
I've got it. Everybody knows it. There's 5-year-old kids that will tell you Batman's background.
Well, that's why people liked Homecoming, because you didn't see Uncle Ben die. It was this new Spider-Man. You saw Aunt May die, and you're like, oh, that's a new one. Hey, somebody else. Uncle Ben was a deadbeat.
They're playing way too. It's just like, leave it alone. I mean, like, give me a different point of view, different spin, but man,
I'll tell you this. Matt Reeves can absolutely kill his second movie if he does like Hush, even if he pulls from like the animated series, give me Scarface with the puppet, if you give me something different that I haven't seen, that is what's really going to set you apart, because that's what made that first Matt Reeves Batman such a good movie. To where even Scorsese was saying, no, that's a film.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, even the 2000s Batman with Christian Bale and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't about being dark and gritty. It was about getting into the comics about what Batman is about. And really and truly, Batman's like a psychological book. Is Batman crazy? Is he just as crazy as the people that he fights? And you have a billionaire running around, and instead of looking at Gotham and saying, what can I do with my company to make this cesspool of a crazy city livable for people, he's like, I'm going to go beat up mentally ill people on the street every night.
He's not making pits. He's not making rockets that go up and come down. He's not making electric cars. He's not doing any of that.
Maybe we should get some clean water in here. I don't know.
The board is doing that on his behalf, but Wayne, he's just like, hey, I got a workout session. Let's wrap this up.
I need to get to space, right?
Because what else should I do? What else is there?
I'm sorry, my friend Clark Kent's calling me. I have to go to space. I gotta go. Like, what? But not enough billionaires are that psychopathic these days, I think is what we're saying.
But they hit in that, and they definitely hit all the tropes and stuff like that. And if you think of the DC characters as Greek gods, you're like, they have to fit within these contained ideals, and they have to represent these things. And as long as they do,
they also have to have that little bit of craziness, because Zeus was a man whore. His wife was very spiteful, especially to his bastards. She did not like them for some reason. They were all like stabbing each other in the back just to get ahead. So I mean, I don't want to say there's a little bit of that in the Justice League, but it would be a lot more interesting if it did tie a little bit closer into Greek mythos. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And whereas Marvel's trying to do the thing where they want to make their intellectual property instantly recognizable. They want to have these tropes. They want to have these things, and they're pulling it in. And it's like, that's not your niche. Your niche is, everybody can see themselves as a Marvel superhero. There's cultural, crossing in here, and there's all these different stories. Spider-Man is a really relatable character. He's got to go to school and work and also be a superhero. It's crazy, right? And it's like, all right, so whenever they try to like look over and they're like, oh, we're gonna make our stuff dark and gritty, it's like, all right, like, kill the aesthetic. Think about the story and think about what these characters are supposed to represent and the plot that they're trying to like further.
They're a bit into the Picasso blue years right now, but they could pull out.
Yeah.
Hopefully, they need to.
It's the same thing with the Marvel X-Men. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you're looking at like the Marvel X-Men, the Fox movies that all came out, and it was just like, oh, we're gonna make these like dark, gritty, and like looking, natural X-Men. It's just like, no, I don't. I want to see Wolverine in the yellow spandex. I want to see
Did
these
you
guys in
see
their costume.
did you see the images from the '97 X-Men that's coming out? Because they slightly changed them.
Mm.
Wolverine's less hairy.
Oh God,
Storm has less hair.
Yeah.
Cyclops and Jean Grey are literally in an image, and it says "power couple." So I don't know like what I mean. There's subtle changes, but I hope it holds a candle. But I kind of feel like this is going to be the Rocco's Modern Life equation all over again, because they tried to bring Rocco's Modern Life back to Netflix, and that shit was garbage.
Well, yeah, but
I'm
they also
hoping this
forgot
isn't the case.
the original one was dark, so it's like somebody just watched Rocco's Modern Life and thought, like, we'll make the shell of that.
Here's another example: Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah.
Wasn't gay enough.
And again, it's like
they took the inappropriate humor out of Ren and Stimpy, and they were just like, "Hey, we'll just make it kind of what you remember, and here's some new jokes." And that's like, no, you're. I really hope they're not gonna do that with the X-Men '97, because it was copying the comic. Look, see what DC. We were just talking about it. See what DC does with animation. That's all you have to do. It's literally what you did on the original X-Men animated series. You took the comics, you made it into an animated. That's all you got to do.
Yep.
Don't go woke. Don't go left. Don't go too. Just aim between the fences, just like in Minnesota. That's all I'm asking you to do.
Yeah.
That's it. Like
if you tell a good story and you have these characters that have these attributes, it's not going to, it's not going to matter. They're going to accentuate the story that you're going to tell. Nobody cares about the various different like intersectionality of like these characters and stuff. It's like, I like the stories that these characters are telling, that they're telling with these characters, these trials and adversities and things that they're overcoming. This is what I'm here for. If you take it and make it about the other stuff, well, where's the story? Where are they going to go? Where are they going to progress? And if that's the only point of it, it's like everybody's just like, okay, all right, I'm bored by 30 minutes in. Let's head out.
Have you checked out Echo? Echo.
Sadly, yes.
The first couple minutes were interesting, because I felt like they were trying to tie it into, hey, there have been superpowered beings in this world for a long time, and hey, you just haven't paid attention. Almost like they're trying to lead into the X-Men, like, you guys just weren't paying attention to it before.
Yeah.
So they have some premise if they can tie in the story properly. There's a lot you could do, because once again, you don't have to show "To me, my X-Men" and you don't have to do all that. You know the characters if they just go off of that. Because that's what they did well with Echo in Hawkeye, is they took this character not a lot of people knew about, like they did with the Purple Man, Frank. And hey, now I'm interested in this. Like, okay, you want to make her a street level hero? Okay, you got her, you got Daredevil, you got Spider-Man. Now you're filling out your street level heroes.
Yeah.
Tying stuff like that, like the X-Men and Beast and different things that you can. Grab the character. We know who it is. If you're looking at the new person coming into the theater, they have a nerd right next to them.
Absolutely.
Or they could talk to the random stranger to their left in the theater. Like,
who's that?
Yeah.
It's Beast, part of the X-Men. Oh, okay.
Cool.
That's it. Yeah. Now everybody's in.
Yeah.
The rest of the movie.
Yeah. It was, but it was also like a cinematic failure, like the whole series. It wasn't until, I think, episode 4 when they gave the Kingpin the little, contact, or he gave her the contact so she could see and we could have a conversation. But the whole first 4 episodes, it's 20 minutes of dead air throughout the entire
It's
episode.
Literally just a catch up, like for the first 2 episodes. Like, this is the stuff you've already saw.
But not just that, the interactions that they're having with her being deaf, the other characters are not speaking. And you're like, I get her, right? she's deaf. She has, she's missing a leg and all this. You're like, I get her disabilities and all of that. But the other characters don't have to be silent, so that you're sitting here and like, if you're like me and I'm like, oh, I'm cooking and I'm listening to the show, 20 minutes later I come back in, I'm like, what? I missed the whole thing. You're like, there's been nothing going
on. A word,
Yeah,
that's a little strange.
They don't make you do Daredevil and blindfold the camera and like, here's how you have to watch Daredevil.
Yeah,
it's just a black screen. He's just fighting people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still, as my brother likes to point out, still absolutely ignoring his job as a lawyer.
Yeah. But I'm just like, okay, so we got 20 minutes of the first 4 episodes with no speech, barely any speech whatsoever. And I'm like, this isn't that Bird Box movie where they're hiding from the creatures and stuff, or what was it, Quiet, right? Where they had to hide. I'm like, this isn't Quiet. We don't have to like, shh, everybody use our, we can't speak.
Although I will say, She-Hulk did a lot more lawyering than like Daredevil did in like 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, we got so much more lawyering. Like, it's possible to be a superhero and a lawyer.
Well, they had to, because the CGI and all that was just out there.
It's a little bit hard to hide that. Like,
even my daughter, when Hulk's son came out on the screen, she just started. Ugh.
Oh, can we fix that, please? You fix Thanos. That wasn't Hulk's son. I don't know what you did with that CGI.
Yeah.
It was awful. Oh my God. It looked like you took Hulk's son and you tried to like Shrek it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would not claim him as my son. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, send him back to Scar. It's good.
Not mine. I don't want to even do a DNA test. I'm just saying no.
Yeah.
Not mine. Well, unfortunately. But no DNA test needed for Tails. That was such a good goddamn segue. Tales of Nihilism. No masochism needed either. But you're gonna feel like a masochist when you've gotten all the way to like what episode am I on? I need more.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's that kind of page turner. I'm so glad to have 2 indie comic creators back to back to make me want to I need another page. Where is it? I'm gonna be going through all your content, man, and everybody else
joining the ranks of that independent creator as well. He's on. I mean, where's the before you go? Where's the next cons and places where they can get a hold of you? What books, I don't know, what stores or whatever. Where are you available at? Where are you going to be available?
Gotcha. So our main platform is Global Comics. You can go on there. The first issue is always free. We want to hook you in and get that first issue. And then all the other issues, I think you can read like 5 or 10 pages, and then, it's a paywall, or you can do the PDF deal. Global Comics, they've gotten a lot better over the years, so you can either make your own account and purchase with tokens from like the artists that you want to support, or you can just buy their PDFs and have that and download them and watch them.
That's awesome.
So yeah, our sixth one.
It's a different kind of option out there, because I've been talking a lot about like Comixology and stuff like that, to where it's an app, you can get it on your phone. This is something different to where you can download the PDF and own it. I'm looking at it here to where you have them on here for Funnies and Nihilism for like $1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you're able to buy them up, and then $4, for a ballad of Philip Kirshner.
Yeah,
Kirshner.
Yeah, Kirshner.
Not Bert Kreischer.
Yeah. We're about to drop our 6th issue here, February, for the main series. So the next one's coming out at the end of February. Okay. And then our comic conventions, we're doing Plastic City Comic Con in July. I forget the exact date.
Where is that one again? I know I heard it before. Where's that located?
It's in Pittsburgh, Massachusetts. It's right outside of Boston.
Massachusetts. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That one's a good one. Keith runs that, and real nice guy, real chill. He's an indie comics creator himself, so he had all of that in mind when he created the convention, and they've been running that. I want to say like 6 or 7 years now.
Oh, wow.
So it's established in that area. And then finally, of course, Veteran Comic Con. That's supposed to be coming out in November. We're still waiting for all that to open up, but they ran it in November last year, and we're expecting that again this year.
That's awesome, man. I can't believe that. Nice. I hope that con goes well for you, especially, being a veteran. We both thanked you. We're going to thank you again.
Yeah,
because 10 years paratrooping, bringing it into, Tales of Nihilism, and out of the suck into what will hopefully be the explosion of your comic career, because it's awesome premise. You have awesome side stories that are going to keep fans coming back for more regardless. And who knows, maybe if they like those side stories enough, you get a whole other comic series out of that. There's that kind of possibility in the indie realm that we love to create. We love to highlight, because you guys are creating real magic here. And for the fans of comics, especially, myself, I didn't start reading comics till I was in my 30s. And it's something to where I can pick up any comic, and if it's a good story, I will flip through it as fast as I can read it. And it's a true sight to like your idea and how good it is, that I could instantly pick it up and instantly want to consume all of it. And all our fans should too. I'll have the link down in the description for the Global Comics link, so they can just hop right in there and start consuming the ballad that you have out here, because it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. Definitely have you on again anytime. It's something that everybody needs to go out there. They'll want to read all of the Tales of Nihilism, and just like this show,
I'd also be remiss. I'd also be remiss if I didn't tell you guys or put it out there. If you are a small business and you are looking to advertise, we have it open for you. We do digital, and when we do these conventions, you get print runs out of each issue that we go. So that's another way that you can support us as well.
Absolutely. Advertisements are definitely a helpful way to make this indie machine run. And, if anybody wants to sponsor Projectors and Walljangers, Tales of the Hunter podcast, you could go ahead and pjandwh.com/contact-us and let me know. But
we'll take a click and a like and a subscribe. That works real good too. So
full opportunity podcast.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Oh man, Steve, it's been so fun having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Truly been a hunt, and we want our fans to hunt you. We end off the podcast the same way, or I try to. We love you, we miss you, and we want to see you next week, gang. Until the next hunt, game on, boys and girls. Bye-bye.
Bye.